Okay, everyone. Hello and welcome to this Ask Me Anything hosted by Deep Tech Showcase and Eagle Point Funding. And we'll get started right now. So, um, my name is Aran Harpaz. I'm the VP of Consulting Services at Eagle Point Funding, and I have the pleasure of being joined by Lee Silvestre from NavalX. Lee, do you want to say a few words, present yourself?
Sure. Very happy to be here. Thank you. My recent career path has taken me back to working with Navy and the government and national defense. So my specialty has always been at the intersection point of industry, high tech, creation, innovation, and application, particularly in national defense and national protection. So this is a role that has allowed me to do that within NavalX.
Okay, that's nice. That's great. Obviously, you'll have more time to talk afterwards. I'll start by giving some sort of a very high level and overview of who we are at Eagle Point Funding and what we do, and some information regarding relevant opportunities that are open right now for small and large companies. After that, Lee will have also actually, let's see the agenda. It will be easier. There will be another presentation by Lee. And then after that, some open discussion with some questions that I'll be asking Lee regarding different things that there are to know regarding funding and working with the Navy and other topics. And in the end, we'll have some sort of open Q&A where you can ask questions. You at the audience, obviously, you can feel free to ask questions. It will be easier for us if the questions are posted on the Q&A so that it's easier for us to track them. We'll be answering them either online or in chat or at the end of the presentation during a Q&A session. And obviously, you can always ask questions. So Deep Tech Showcase, the vision for Deep Tech Showcase and Eagle Point Funding is to bring more innovative technologies to market by leveraging the power of community. The community from Deep Tech Showcase has a mix of startups, government stakeholders, and corporate stakeholders, and investors. The work is done through showcases. For example, you can see that at the end of the month, there is a showcase where companies and innovators have the opportunity to pitch their solutions and their ideas to a cohort of relevant stakeholders and partners from industry, from the government, and from different sources, small companies as well. And after that, there are introductions that are made. These are hand-picked events, both on the participant side and on the panelist side. So these are very high level, high quality events moderated by Brian that we have here with us. And a very, very interesting opportunity for companies to pitch their solutions. There are other events as well. You can check out the calendar on Deep Tech Showcase website. And there are other initiatives that are done by Deep Tech Showcase, for example, direct introductions and webinars and marketing activities and connections. There are many items and opportunities for that they provide to their clients as far as advancing their business presence in the market. Eagle Point Funding, which is where I come from, we're focusing on the R&D side. We are helping companies identify and hopefully win the support of the government to advance their research and development activities and or advance their research and development and products themselves. Here, what we see is a short list of some of the opportunities that we're looking into and we're expecting to be published over the next 5 months here. So it ranges from the NSF SBIR, which is expected to be published any week now, the SVIP from the DHS, DOT SBIR, the DOD SBIR, which is expected to be published in a few weeks, and the Air Force Open Topic, the XTech Scalable AI, which is from the from the Army, another Army SBIR's Open Topics, and the NASA Ignite, as well as DOE, Navy, and more opportunities that we don't have the room here. So we are looking for many opportunities that are going to be published. Again, a short list of some of them we can see here. I mentioned most of them, and there are also opportunities that are just being published on a rolling basis for a short time. And all we do at Eagle Point Funding is look for opportunities for our clients, pitch them to them, and try to help them win the support of the government. The way that we are helping companies is in the fact that we know the system, we know where to look, we know what to find, we know how to understand if the opportunity that we identified is relevant for the company. We try to apply for as many opportunities as possible. Obviously, only relevant opportunities for the company, both in respect of the company's size and position in the market, but also regarding their technology and their capabilities to answer the requirements of the agency. And we are helping writing the application itself. We take a big chunk of the work so that you don't need to take care of that. We're applying on your behalf through your systems, obviously under your name. It's not us doing that. We don't take anything regarding IP or any other type of ownership of what you're doing. It's all you. We are just helping reduce the time it takes to find opportunities, write the applications, and apply. We go into a multiple submission process during the course of 9 to 18 months. We have anywhere between 9 and 50 projects that are being submitted. We're never limit the number of applications that are submitted by the client. We just want to have strong winning application for you. This is what we do. Usually when companies sign with us, there's a kickoff call to start off the engagement between 1 and 3 days, if possible, after signing the agreement. We try to have one submission at least in the first month of working together. On average, it takes us 4 to 6 weeks between the submissions themselves. Obviously, there are many cases where it's a shorter amount of time. It all depends on how much time we have. And we can also work on parallel on different applications if there is a need for that. On average, as I said, 5 to 10 plus submissions over 9 months. We had cases of companies submitted 20 and more projects over 9 months, and we had cases where companies submitted less. It's all about what's relevant for the company and how engaged they are in the process. But there's never a limit to the number of submissions that we're doing. So this is us, this is Eagle Point Funding and Deep Tech Showcase. I'll give the floor now to Lee to talk about NavalX. Lee, you can share screen. Let me know if it works.
Just going to talk. I don't need to share slides. I just want to talk to the audience and make it close and personal.
Perfect. So you have the stage.
Okay. So NavalX is an initiative that was started a few years back, about 2018, and it's an effort to bring together by the Navy people, companies, tools, resources, academia to get sailors and Marines what they need when they need it. That's at the biggest level. It's built on a foundation of collaboration and the belief that if industry, academia, private sector, and DoD can, broader than DoD, but in this case, Navy, can work together, we can solve an awful lot of things and not have to reinvent the wheel. And that's the important thing, which is where they use the term dual or multiple use a lot relative to, hey, if something's out there, if it's in practice, if it's being developed or has been developed, let's not redo things. So NavalX was started. The efforts in NavalX, they're wide and varied, but they're predominantly FAR based, FAR, Federal Acquisition Regulation based opportunities and programs, funding streams, that type of thing. So it's meant to be activity, energy, collaboration prior to programs becoming program of record and FAR based, production based contracts, even prior to limited production. Within the NavalX program, they have an institution called Tech Bridges, and it's a network of, at this moment, 18 tech bridges. 16 are in the US, including Hawaii, one's in Japan, and one is in the UK. Tech bridges are the clearinghouse, the way, the entry point into the Navy for startups, entrepreneurs, small businesses, universities, labs, anything interested in collaborating with the US Navy and Marines. They are designed to focus on a region. Each one of those 18 tech bridges is predominantly anchored at a naval entity like a warfare center or a lab. Maybe Naval Postgraduate School is one. Most of them are at warfare centers. And they're meant to, in a good sense of the word, exploit the great talent, technologies, and companies in that region. Bring it to light, give it the light of day, spread it across the network, and make sure that if there's a Navy mission need that can be met by someone in industry, particularly startups and small businesses who are doing something that the Navy should be paying attention to, let's find out sooner rather than later. And let's not, again, reinvent the wheel if something's already happening. So one of the many things that now falls under NavalX, and now I'm honing in on specifically the topic of this, is the SBIR STTR program. Now, every government agency plays into the SBIR STTR program. Every government agency implements it in a little bit unique way. The Navy implements it under the Navy SBIR. They keep to the main rules, and then they have some specificity that they use in terms of selecting. They don't give grants, they give contracts because of the rigor that they use to select and issue funding. But basically the SBIR STTR program, and I'll define that in a minute, is their like Navy's investment dollars. The neat thing is, unlike private equity, unlike venture capital and other ways of investing, completely non-dilutive. So the Navy will invest in something with for the sake of giving industry a leg up on developing something that they would then have access to. Now, when I say Navy, that's a broad term. It's made up of NAVC, and that's predominantly my background is maritime and blue tech, NAVAIR, SPAWAR, the Marine Corps, and ONR. SBA, the Small Business Administration in the United States, manages the SBIR program. And you hear the terms SBIR, STTR again, Small Business Innovation Transition Program. That is the effort to develop and evolve technology that the warfighter needs. STTR program, little bit different in nature. They involve an academic partnership, so involve some type of research coming out of academia. Both of them are really valuable. Both of them have a lot of promise for small companies that are looking to get money. Not an easy path to go down. I gotta be upfront. So oftentimes, my role as a tech bridge coordinator. So let me back up for a moment. My role is associated with one of those 18 tech bridges. It happens to be Northeast USA, covering New England and beyond. I have a counterpart inside the Navy gates. That's the tech bridge director. I am the person outside the Navy gates, tech bridge coordinator, for lack of a better term, Northeast tech bridge coordinator in this case. And by the fact that I'm not badged and I do not sit in a Navy seat, I can do things that my Navy counterparts can't. So I work very closely with industry, particularly with the SBIR program and beyond. But again, today's focused on SBIR. SBIR has 3 phases. Phase 1 programs, phase 1 projects focus predominantly on concept development, feasibility studies, early stage. Phase 2 focuses on, and typically companies that go after phase 1 will go to a phase 2 or direct to a phase 2 under certain circumstances. They do technology development for prototype. And then phase 3 is really focused on implementation, demonstration, commercialization, and is non-SBIR program funding. It's program funding involving other people's money, OPM they call it. There's usually, most government agencies, true with the Navy, they have 3 drops a year, they call it. FY whatever, and we're in FY 24 now, 0.1, 0.2, and 0.3. Usually the 0.1 is loaded up with SBIR and STTR topics that have been very, very clearly defined. The Navy takes great pride in doing a lot of research to understand the needs of the Navy, the needs of the warfighter, and how that will translate into what they're asking industry to do in terms of testing concepts, developing technology, developing prototypes. There is also we heard this just a little earlier, open topics. Navy has never really liked open topics. They like defining and guiding industry as to what they need, what they know will be useful, and more importantly to them, what they know will have a path into a program. But because of a congressionally mandated set of actions, they too, along with other government agencies, have to run an open topic period. So we had the first one. There was a restricted topic years ago. They really didn't like it and stopped doing it. So the first real open topic was FY23. There's going to be another one in FY24. And what you'll see with Navy open topics, and this was true last year, they put a bit of definition around it so that they're helping the industry understand what some of their critical needs are. And last year, for instance, it was logistics and operational techniques or methods or practices or technology that were designed for a contested environment, maybe a GPS contested environment or denied environment. Industry is just getting used to knowing Navy that this is an area of interest, and the Navy's getting used to how to handle open topics, not driven by all this direct line into a command. So lessons learned. But I am rambling, and with that, maybe I have tons and tons and tons of material on the various programs within SBIR, like experimentation cell, transition program, reach back, fast track. I could take up 5 hours. So let me stop there with that overview and see if we can make a duck of this.
So first of all, thank you for the overall overview. I think you're answering some of the questions that I had and that we pre-prepared for this. If it's okay, I want to take a step back because you mentioned in the beginning, you mentioned that you're back with the Navy. Can you give us a little bit of an overview of your background and how you got to the position that you're in right now?
Sure. I call the role I'm in, the position I'm in, my sweet spot, because it's basically taking from serendipity, if I'm honest, so much of what I did in my long life now, and I'm a little bit older and I don't know any wiser, but I started off in technology. I started off applied mathematics, ops research, econometrics. So I pulled in a little of the business side. I went to work for KPMG Pete Marwick, and I got involved with supporting the warfighter, but on the side where the warfighter and the high level Navy people weren't talking technology. So I found, because of my background, I could kind of bridge that gap, talking technology to companies and to the industry and talking business terms to the Navy, all the while learning about national defense and naval missions and basically the Blue Tech initiative, or Blue Tech technologies. Went from there to Raytheon and had a number of roles on the leadership team, led their mission innovation group. And the reason I mention that is it allowed me to take Raytheon technologies, all driven to apply to Navy warfighter needs, and apply it to non-Navy needs. So I got that, I cut my teeth on that dual multiple use market of trying to take technologies and morph it and pivot and get it into the hands of people who could do something great, but not defense. Then 5 of us, including the business president, we were at $6.2 billion business at that point in Raytheon, went and started a company in Light and Color. Fascinating, and probably the most insightful thing I ever did relative to this role was experience what it's like to start a company and have to be profitable and grow staff and all the things that come with that. So then series of things happened and kind of life hit, and I had to leave there and physically come back home and regroup for a while, and then got tapped on the shoulder by a nonprofit to set up the Undersea Technology Innovation Consortium. So I got the nonprofit side of it, where we worked with a number of very large to very small companies, again, in the defense space, in this case, undersea warfare. And then got tapped on the shoulder from ONR, Office of Naval Research, to do this role. And again, this role, it's a sweet spot of working with entrepreneurs, startups, small companies, technology, and Navy missions, and try to marry that up and find the intersection point.
So basically, you've done it all. You've been at academia, consultancy, large companies, small companies, startups, and now with working with the government from the inside, or as a consultant
I
maybe.
wouldn't say academia. I have taught very technical classes, but not a
Still,
big part of my career.
okay, still, but you have an understanding of all the processes. So seeing all of that and knowing from the outside and from the inside, what do you think would you recommend to companies who are trying to work or have an interest in working with the Navy, specifically through the SBIR program, or in general? Maybe there are other ways to do that are, I don't know, streamlined, faster, more efficient.
So what I would say is there are a number, so let's say a company is very determined on specifically the SBIR, STTR program. I would suggest first, do a little homework, understand what the program is about, and understand the other facets of the program. There are many, many programs and resources under the umbrella of SBIR that have nothing to do with projects. I mentioned very briefly the STP, the SBIR Transition Program, the Navy, there's a program called Navy Launch. There's a program called the Department of Navy SEC, SBIR Experimentation Cell. There's another program called TABA. It's the Technical and Business Assistance Program. Again, all of these have funding, resources, mentoring, and other services available to them. There's other, and I could go on and on and on with the other options that are very underutilized, but I would recommend do your homework. The second thing is understand where you are as a business, where you want to go, what your goal is, what you wish to achieve. Do you wish to go only Navy or DoD or government or beyond? If you want to go potentially beyond, there are so many ways, even if you don't want to go beyond into industry, so many ways that you can get support through experimentation programs, acceleration programs, incubator programs, and each one has a myriad of companies that have these offerings. The MEPs, manufacturing extension partnerships, you can work with them. You can work with what used to be PTAC, Procurement Technical Assistance Group, but now it's called the Apex Accelerator, designed to work with companies to help them along the process, help them in the SBIR arena. I would also recommend to any startup, to any entrepreneur, to explore both private industry as well as Navy options, because there's many things you can do on the way to Navy work or DoD work or government work that allows you to diversify and do other things that help you along that journey, whether it's funding, credibility, product development, all of the above. It doesn't have to be one or the other. And in fact, if done smartly, particularly at the early stages, which is why I spend a piece of my time doing early venture mentoring, the decision to do that and knowing why you're deciding it early on allows you to pivot very easily when the time comes, from firewalling or restricting certain data sharing and things like that, that later on could become a hassle.
Okay. So do your homework is what you're saying.
Homework. And look at the other programs. There's so many other programs, and people like me and others that I've just mentioned can help you navigate the vast myriad of programs. And I haven't even started, touching that's tip of the iceberg with what's offered from commerce and academia and various other institutions, DIU, Ensign, groups like that.
Is there a way for a company to know what are the challenges and what are the focus areas of the Navy apart from seeing the topics as they're published? Because obviously a part of the homework that they need to do is to, as you said, understand what resources can they have when they go when they want to work with the Navy or with the government or to apply. Or maybe another question or a different way to ask the question is, what are the challenges that the Navy currently have or foresees for the future regarding their technology and the needs?
Okay, so every year the Navy will come out with their profile, their top challenges, to stay tied into some of the publications, it would be helpful, defense news, it would be helpful, but basically they're constantly reassessing this. And if you do look at the topics that have been issued, which is particularly useful if you ever want to do a reach back, if you ever want to do a fast track, if you want to do a, there's various terms for the various programs, expansion, there's a matching funds program. It really does help to look back at what's been invested in and where it's gone. If you see something go from phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, you know it's a priority. If you see something that you've read as an urgent need and yet it stopped at phase 1, there could be a sequential phase 2 opportunity. There could be a subsequent phase 2 opportunity. All of these are the possibilities. It's overwhelming though, how to navigate this at times. And that's why the tech bridges were stood up. So a private company, particularly, the small companies, can only do so much and only know so much of this. Reach out to your tech bridge network, reach out to the people that you can reach right into NavalX, and they will get you to a node in the network or somebody you've connected with. And we try to stay pretty well collaborating and socialize so that we can pass across that network wherever it makes sense to tie in. For instance, I've had numerous companies just by happenstance the last 2 weeks that have a lot to do with protecting surface assets. Well, my predominant focus is undersea. So I go to my buddy, the counterpart, Rick Tarr in NavAir, to say, who in NavAir should I get these things to? So don't worry about necessarily finding the exact right person. If you can find somebody in that network, we can help you.
Okay. You mentioned if you see that a project go through phase 1 to phase 2 to phase 3, then or a topic or a technology, then it means that this is of interest for the Navy. So there are 2 questions here. Number 1, what is the process, or how does a company move from phase 1 to phase 2 to phase 3? You mentioned that phase 1 is for a proof of concept and experimenting, phase 2 is for prototyping, and phase 3 is for the commercialization and the next step. So what are the, statistics or processes, and how does a company actually do the move between them? And question number 2 that is related to that, maybe even more important than that, will the Navy fund more than one company and more than one project that is aimed to do the same thing?
Yes, yeah, that certainly has happened. But in a nutshell, because you asked a few different things.
Yeah.
My memory is only so good. So I mentioned the 3 programs, and you talked about the various phases. So phase 1, again, is a feasibility study. There is, and once that's done, once that's shown, once that's demonstrated, then if the government sees what they're, in this case, the Navy, if they see basically what they're looking for, oh yeah, that's something novel. And sometimes it will go nowhere, because sometimes they say, we researched the need, which drove the topic. That part, you can be pretty assured in the Navy, once it comes out with a request for a proposal, there's a need somewhere associated with it. They don't just stick out topics. Having said that, sometimes they're aware of things that industry is not, and they may see an approach coming through with phase 2 and say, we're there already. Thank you, industry, but no. If they see something that's really a promise, they'll say, okay, if phase 1 is successful, there could be a subsequent R&D effort. And that's where they're going to say, we want you to take what you've done and maybe demonstrate it or prototype it. And that's the phase where you see prototypes built and tested and demonstrated. Then phase 3 is where they say, okay, there's really something here. And they will work with the company to find other money, again, outside of SBIR, and really start to get it into an exercise, get it into maybe an early prototype into an early rate production contract. And that's how you can see it progressing.
Okay. But it's not guaranteed. I mean, the project can fall at any point, either because the Navy understand that they maybe don't need that, or because the project failed. I mean, there are different pitfalls for companies at any point.
And so in this case, and we're all very, successful and competitive, hopefully. We don't like to use the word fail. This is where failure is insight.
Yeah.
If we as people, if we in the Navy are not testing ourselves, challenging ourselves, and if we never experience failure, we're not challenging ourselves enough. So the Navy recognizes an industry that understands SBIR, tech, understands research in general, realizes that if you're going to challenge concepts, if you're going to try your hand at something, you will fail. And if you don't fail, boy, that's nice too. But failure is not a bad thing. It eliminates all the possibilities and hopefully narrows it to the ones that are probable. You asked a question before, again, what should a company do? And just another thought came to mind. Research the potential topic. So not just that the topic's there, but to research it and understand what the transition point of that would be. So because sometimes the Navy and other government agencies will throw something out so far in advance of when it would actually take place that if a company is, living and breathing and dying by each dollar they get every day, that may not be the right thing for you.
Mm-hmm.
But they will toss out these little hooks into the sea of ideas to see, does anybody have a sense of this? And it would be coming up. It's not for the faint of heart, SBIR. Sometimes it's a long, a road to go. There's also technical points of contact associated with every SBIR. Anybody during what's called the pre-release phase, there's pre-release to open to closed. And the period between pre-release and open in every one of those phase 1, phase 2 cycles is when you can call up a technical point of contact, TPOCs they're called, or maybe a program manager, and have an open conversation. It's a great way to explore what's going on behind that topic and how it came up. And if a company needs technical assistance, they may ask for TABA funding right up front, that technical and business assistance program. And I've got a number of other suggestions, but again, I'll stop here in case it's just too much.
So you mentioned the timelines, and sometimes they throw up the hook regarding to see what's available, maybe even. What is the readiness level that the Navy expects for phase 1s and for phase 2s? Do they want to see an idea? Do they want to have a prototype already, or even a for the Air Force, for example, if you have something that is already in the market, then for AFERS, for the open topic for the Air Force, it's perfect because it's the lowest level of challenge or risks for the company to do. The NSF or the DOE or NASA want very low readiness level. They want the high risk. So where does the Navy stand?
Where do they fall? Right.
Yeah.
So there's a dichotomy when I'm going to answer this, a dichotomy of the answer. On one hand, if it's brand spanking new technology, this isn't an early research program. This is where you really want to get a technology and idea moved along. So usually proof of concept so TRL 3, 4 in the beginning. Mm-hmm. By the time you're ready to prototype it in phase 2, you'd expect maybe a 5 or a 6. Mm-hmm. However, like with open topics, and the Navy's finally coming around to this, if there are technologies out there that are in other industries that are already mature, yet still need to be, and I use the term pivot, but evolved and massaged to get over into a Navy application, it could be in one area a TRL 8 or 9 or beyond. And yet there are actions necessary that wouldn't necessarily change the TRL of that readiness, but would put the readiness in the Navy example back a few pegs, or maybe quite a few pegs. But it's for industry to say, listen, this is out there, it works, it can apply here. And that's actually an advantage in the world we live in today.
Yeah, this is what the Air Force at least calls dual use. So a technology that was
dual or
proven,
multiple use, yeah. Yeah.
proven in the market, but needs to be adjusted and continued development.
Yes.
What would you say? So what are the set, or what did the Navy set as the priorities for funding for 2024 and 2025? What are the key focus areas that the Navy has set?
So I will preface this with, I know what I know from public material, and I say that because my role, and it's very critical, it is not only not badged, I hold no classification. So I, by design, unlike my prior life, I have no access to classified data of any way. So what I understand is from publicly facing information. And I know the Navy is challenged with, has challenges that are hinging on unmanned technology, sensing, protection, ISR in the surveillance and reconnaissance, data validation, data integration. Again, you pick up a defense news or a naval magazine, and if you read one or two of them, you sit back and say, I get it. And it's the world we live in. We are fraught with too much data on one hand, in data that's not integrated, meaning insight and intelligence that has difficulty coming together from data feeds, spoofed or denied data. So a world where, imagine being undersea and there's no GPS, or imagine where, you know, something happens and you can't communicate with your satellites or your ship to your whatever. It's not hard to understand what those priorities might be. Everything from, you know, Navy has ships, so you'd have sensing, propulsion, warfare systems. The undersea has its own types of systems, challenges, options, and everything in between.
Okay. Last question that I have before we move on to the audience questions. Last year, or maybe the year before that, there was a reenactment of the SBR program in which there was some sort of a focus on foreign affiliation, relationship, and control. Do you see anything that changed within the Navy and the SBR program because of that? Is the reviewing process changed apart from the additional certifications and documents that are required? Is there any change in the review process by the Navy?
So I haven't necessarily seen a change in the review process. What I have seen is an acceptance with, for instance, AUKUS-based relationships. And, you know, UK, Canada, Australia's thrown in there, New Zealand, where allied contribution means a lot. And there was a time when people on the US side would say, nope, if it's not US based, we can't do it. Well, now there's a lot of cross discussion, cross dialogue, not just with the SBIR program. And probably with these answers, I'm reflecting on much beyond SBIR that I tend to get involved with from concept development, from entrepreneurial efforts, right up to FAR-based programs, where SBIR is the nucleus of that. But there's an awful lot of discussions, programs, opportunities for various technologies internationally to come together on solutions that are put before the Navy that didn't happen a few years back.
But still, as far as the SBIR program, which is our focus, you still must do everything in the United States. There are no offshoring work, but what you're saying is that collaboration outside of the United States is no longer seen as a problem for the companies who are going for that. How does this relate to ITAR?
So ITAR requirements are as valid and strict and significant as they ever were. And that's when I mentioned mentoring companies early on. And being able to understand where their information is coming from, where it's going to, how it's protected, that's a big deal. In fact, even to play into, and this is non-classified world too, even to play into some of the consortia out there that have the OTAs, you have to show that you're ITAR compliant. You have to show that you can fill out a DD 2345. You understand how to handle controlled, unclassified data. That's still a big deal. In the world we live in, it's probably even a bigger deal than it ever was. How many times do we get, calls from scammers every single day? Well, same thing with people trying to get at, causing problems within the government.
Yeah, and for those who don't know, ITAR is the International Traffic in Arms Regulation. These are this is the body or the entity that governs how does the United States save or maintain its advantage over adversaries in other countries in technology and items that are seen as strategic, and it can be
Yes.
it can be arms but it can also be things that are related to AI and any other thing that has to do with a strategic advantage for the United States.
Yep.
Okay, let's see some questions that we have, and everyone, if you have questions, post them. For now, we have 2, so I will be happy to answer more. So Noah Ben-Jabara asks, I'm a European citizen. Is it a problem for integrating into the program? I think if you can specify European citizen, but also what is your position in the United States? Are you in the United States under a visa, permanent resident, or a dual citizen? That can also affect the question, the answer. But Lee, can you answer that? How, again, we touched it a little bit. European citizens, what are the restrictions and problems that they have within the program, if there are any?
So I believe they still look into where the company's ownership resides and the nationality with the owners, the officers of the company. That probably, so again, I go back to the question you asked, are you a dual citizen? Is your company anchored here? That type of thing. Right now, it would be difficult.
Yeah, okay. I can also add, in order to participate in the SBIR, the company must be a U.S. citizen, a U.S. company, as you said, and
Yep.
it need to be more than 50% owned and controlled by American permanent residents and citizen. There's no problem to have in most cases. If it's ITAR controlled, maybe it's something else. There's no problem for a person that is not a non-U.S. to work and even be a PI in a project.
Right.
But we, as Eagle Point Planning, at least, we're taking a more cautious way. We're always trying to have, because we had a project that was canceled because of that. So it's okay to be there as long as you're doing everything legally, obviously. So it's not always a problem, but we just need to have more information.
This comes up a lot with STTR because many of the universities bring in a beautiful diversity of people that focus on their technology programs. And it's always an issue with STTR, who's working on the program, who's contributing in certain ways, who's been vetted, that type of thing. So they pay attention to that.
Yeah. Okay. Ben, sorry, Noah, I see your answer here. It's very specific. I don't know if we can say, basically, he asks about a specific project that he has, and what do you think about this project? I don't know if we can answer this specifically. This is because of the very specificality, and I don't think either one of us can say.
It's hard to tell from this answer, Ben. The democratizing of modeling optimization is something I see in the industry. It's hard to say based on this. Do you have something that's really differentiated? Would in general the theme be welcomed? Yes. Would it be worth exploring? I'm sure yes. We can help you decide if the approach is novel enough, but I thought the question hinged on the fact that it was you are European, but is your company European? And that's where I think the initial question still lies.
In order to understand the relevancy of the use case and the technology itself, assuming that you're eligible for this program, as we mentioned before, you just need to see what topics are going to be published by the Navy in a few weeks. And if there is a topic that you feel is relevant for what you're doing, then you can reach out to the TPOC and ask him directly, maybe he'll give you some information. Again, they can't give you direct answers of yes or no in some cases, in my experience, even though once we got an answer during the meeting that said you're not in the scope of this project, of this program, we convinced him otherwise, but that's a different story. So sorry, go ahead, Lee.
If I could add too, and again, it's outside of formally the SBIR STTR program, but there are these vehicles called OTAs, other transaction authority vehicles, that are designed, they're FAR-based, Federal Acquisition Regulation-based vehicles, meant to accelerate specifically small businesses and entrepreneurs getting their work ideas into the government when it's at prototype ready. So they're prototype OTAs. So this is the type of thing too, where looking down the list historically at SBIR topics as recently as the first drop this fiscal year, very insightful to look at the various OTAs. If you can find one of the many OTAs, there's a lot of them out there, but the one that pertains thematically from a technical standpoint to the thing you do, and you look at the prototypes that have been asked of industry, you can glean a lot of information on what is the government looking for. We have an undersea OTA, as you could maybe guess, and it's awarded to the Undersea Technology Innovation Consortium, UTIC. And if somebody has an undersea technology, if you become a member there, and it's a very small bar to become a member, you can look at all the topics that have been thrown out there that have specifically been prototype driven. And again, a lot of insight, lot of intel.
Yeah, so search basically. Gregory asks, can you give specific contact to AI for AI related applications which might be of interest to the Navy?
So the short answer is not one specific contract. AI is kind of like breathing air these days. AI has a role in many, many, many systems, smart systems. So without understanding the AI application and the purpose of employing AI and utilizing AI, it's very hard to direct you to the right place. The Navy doesn't have a generic AI group as much as it has, for instance, NavAir versus NavSea. AI is used in undersea technologies, it's used in surface technologies, it's used in surface to air technologies. So again, it's like mechanical engineering. Who uses mechanical engineering? That would have been a relevant question maybe 20, 30 years ago. A lot of people. So it's very hard to direct you to a source. But again, by tying into somebody like a role like mine or somebody in the TechBridge network, we can help you figure out, based on your application intentions, where the right entry point might be.
Okay. Another question here, and I'm not sure I understand the question itself. Currently, whether is nuclear power an option for large-scale commercial cargo ship? I'm
not sure.
I'm not sure I understand the question itself. I will say, commercial cargo ship, I don't know if this is something that is of interest for the Navy itself, because the Navy doesn't, as far as I know, do commercial cargo ships.
No.
Maybe for maybe other vehicles that are used by the Navy, and I guess then nuclear power is an option, because we know that some of the larger ships are using nuclear power.
Yep.
So my guess is yes. So it's very hard to answer this question because we don't. I personally don't fully understand that. Commercial cargo ship, no. But if you're offering, I would say if you're offering nuclear power for cargo ships, for commercial cargo ships, and maybe it's something that would be of interest for the Navy. I didn't see topics in this area, at least for SPIRs.
Well, this is one where there's a shipbuilding OTA. And again, anchoring into what the technologies of record have been that they've looked at and invested in. More effectively, though, there are just a handful of large ship system integrators, ship designers and developers in the United States. My friend Bahari Online, BAE, she knows a number of them, but you've got, here in the Northeast, as an example, you've got General Dynamics Electric Boat, Portsmouth Naval Shipyard, Bath Iron Works, and that's just in this little geographic cluster. So that's an example where we have people in our region who have shipbuilding competency, and they're approaching these organizations to try to find out if although they don't drive requirements, the Navy does, and this is where it's not commercial, it's naval, but they would know where requirements are coming down for this, or where they're already building in these technologies. So maybe, and I'm reading into the question, maybe the nuclear systems that you're bringing on the commercial side might have promise for a little bit of an advantage over what's there now on the Navy side. I don't know, I'm reading into it, but we'd have to assess that and get you to the right point of contact.
So there is a follow-up related to nuclear power applied on supply chain shipbuilding. So again, I think what, as Lee said, maybe under the OTAs, it could be relevant there. I'm not 100% sure about that. Another question that came in: we have a technology I believe can be classified as strategic technology that simultaneously can produce green hydrogen and deionize drinking water economically. It consists of, and then there is a electrolyzer that has already been proven with a number of pilot sites. I have not fully revealed yet to the public. I think it will be of great interest for the Navy and other military agencies. What do you recommend I do to be able to present it to them in order to build a demo unit and install it as soon as possible? So to summarize, there is a technology that was already proven, that was already developed to some extent, but wasn't fully revealed or demonstrated in the public. What is the best way to demonstrate that and to be in touch with the Navy or other agencies to move on to build a demo unit and do business with the government itself?
So I heard desalinization, right?
Desalinization of water, and yeah, so no, not desalinization. Produce green energy and deionized drinking water.
Oh,
economically.
deionized, that's right. So the question would be, is that a naval thing? Is it an Army thing? A lot of times the Army will go in and provide resources to help a community in need survive. It may not be DoD at all. It may be another government agency that does this. I do know there are technologies out there making some of these claims, and I'm in an active search right now to figure out, are there places within the Navy and DoD that this is relevant? Not to say it's not very important, of course it is. But how relevant it is, it could be relevant to the undersea community because of what, the challenges presented by living in a submarine for some duration. So it could be relevant there. I think it all starts with, again, the nodes in the network, people like me, NavalX, trying to understand more, a little bit of pulling back the sheets, so to speak, and understanding what's there in order to help get you to the right place. The good thing about talking to anybody in NavalX, the NavalX network, the tech bridges, we don't compete with industry. We're not looking to, we're bound by rules that we, keep information close hold. We honor the privacy of the companies. And so we're not there to create more competition. We're there to figure out how to get these great ideas into Navy. So I think it's a safe place to talk to. How effective we are at getting to the right source, that remains to be seen at times. Navy's a big company a big organization, but we try our hardest to try to make the right connections.
I can add to that. The Air Force had something called Africa's Challenge that was focused on the base of the future and expedite basing. So if this technology can be in some way mobile and can be used by them for that, so it could be relevant for the Air Force itself. This is something that I know and they're looking for. Produces green hydrogen and deionized water from seawater simultaneously. Not only water, also hydrogen fuel. My guess, from my understanding, you just need to see the topic. You just need to find a topic and a relevant point of contact. I think reaching out to any one of the Navy's point of contacts that Lee mentioned before, and the ecosystems that are there could be helpful. But also looking for OTAs or SBR topics that could be relevant here.
And I would not discount the environmental agencies, Department of Health even, that may get into some of this, although that may be a far stretch. NOAA, in various marine sciences groups. So it may not be Navy per se, but it certainly should and could be government.
Yeah, if we're going there, the DOE has there is the Green Energy Act and Climate Act and CHIPS Act.
Right.
There is a lot of money going into creating a strategic capability of the US to in the energy sector. Part of that is hydrogen. There are topics for creation hydrogen or hydrogen fuel cell. So the DOE has a lot of money, EPA has a lot of money into that, NSF has money into that, hopefully, and the DOD obviously as well. So there are different agencies and topics that could be relevant here. I just need to find them.
And this is where I'd go right to EPA as probably the most likely sponsor of something like this. And then once it's anchored at a place like that, then the peripheral opportunities like Navy, like Air Force and others would step in. But to introduce it from a more unlikely place into EPA or into an environmental group would be harder.
Okay, I think we are out of questions and also out of time. So Lee, I want to thank you very much to taking the time to talk to me and to us and share a little bit of your experience and knowledge in this field.
This has been my pleasure.
So thank you very much, and everyone who participated here, thank you. Feel free to reach out to us through our website to book a call and talk to us and see how we can help and get more information, pick our brains regarding what's available for you. And good luck. And again, thank you very much. The recording will be available online, and you should be getting a link to that. And again, thank you very much, Lee. Thank you again. And
Thank you.
Have a great day, everyone.
Bye-bye.